Alex. Today I'm giving y'all a review and 3 looks using the Claropsyche Real Fantasy Palette. This came out, I believe, around October or November of last year. I saw this right before lockdown actually this year. This is what it looks like. I've just kind of had this on my wish list for a while and kind of never got around to picking it up, and I don't know why, because if you look at it, this is truly an Alex color scheme. So I finally decided to pick it up. It's $45, which is the full price, and they don't cover shipping, so you will need to pay for that as well. I think there was like a large shipping minimum. However, they did ship really fast. I ordered this last Friday and it came in the mail on Tuesday, and that was just with the standard flat rate shipping. So I think they did a fantastic job on that. It was super quick. I got this really fast. So I've been lusting after this for a long time, especially since it has kind of that like colorful but autumnal sort of color scheme. The sunlight is changing the lighting in this room, changing the lighting on my face. But let's actually get into what I think about this palette. First of all, let me pop up some arm swatches right here that I took basically the first day that I got this palette, just because I had some friends who were very interested to see how like they swatched, the colors performed and all of that, so that's what the colors swatch like. I know swatches aren't, you know, the only way to really determine how a palette performs, and you're going to see all of that in the 3 looks as well. Overall, I think that this is a very fantastic palette. The colors are super easy to work with. I really appreciate that there are lots of colorful mattes, because I find that there are so many colorful palettes that all of the colors are shimmers and all of the neutrals are mattes, and I think that this has a wide variety of both. I'm not a fan of every single shade in this palette, but it never actually has anything to do with how the shadow performs, and just kind of boils down to my own color preferences. So my favorite shades in the palette are Trance, Cerise, and Alien, and I have Alien on my inner corner. I also really like the shade Amethyst here, which is just kind of an iridescent lavender. And my 2 least favorite shades are Necromancer and Ice, and they both perform just fine. They're just really not shades that I go for, because I don't really go for like any sort of gray, silvery type shades on my eyes, and I will use this kind of as a transition shade, but I never kind of use it on its own, because I don't like light colors near my eyes, especially not like light blues. I don't think that's flattering. However, that has absolutely nothing to do with how they perform. These perform just the same as all the other shades in the palette, which you will see. They blend really nicely. One of the things that I appreciate is that they're super pigmented, but they're not any struggle to blend out whatsoever. The only shade that I do have a little bit of trouble with is the shade Mystic, and that's just because I think it's just because it's a purple, you know, and purple mattes especially can be very difficult to formulate. You just kind of have to pack it on a whole lot in order to get it to its full opacity. So I don't necessarily think that that's bad, because you can get it to work really well. It just requires a little bit more work than the other shades in this palette. Right now I'm wearing Jupiter, Mahogany, and Alien on my eyes, and all of those perform really nicely. I like that I can get a more neutral look out of this if I want to. Not that I'm always particularly inclined to do neutral looks, but you know, if I wanted to. The one shade that is a bit different is the shade Crystalline. This is what I generally speaking use as my inner corner highlight from this palette. This one is a little bit more chunky than the other shimmers, like Necromancer, Princess, Amethyst, and Mermaid are just like very smooth shimmers. They perform really nicely. Crystalline, it really pops when you have kind of like a glitter glue base underneath it, but it also is a little bit chunkier, so you do have to either put down a glitter glue base beforehand or just kind of take a little bit of time building it up. I don't think that's necessarily a problem, but since it does perform different than the other shades in this palette, I did want to let y'all know. Overall, I think this palette is very good. I know Claropsyche has one other palette that was a Sykes box, which is kind of like a pastel rainbowy type of palette. It's not necessarily my color scheme, but I know a lot of people really like that palette. I also know that they came out with some like water activated liners recently in a palette as well. I think that came out either right before or right after I ordered this, so I wanted to kind of test the quality of it first before I tried that. If you're not willing to pay the $45, because it is definitely on the higher end of what I would pay for an indie brand, if you're not willing to pay that just kind of saved the page, because I know that they do like sales a couple times a year according to some of the other reviews that I've watched, so definitely watch out for that, because I would probably buy the other palette that they have, since if it's the same quality as this, but I probably wouldn't pay the full $45 again. Overall, I think that this is a really good company and a very good palette. This is nice for fall because I love fall tones. This kind of really encapsulates that while also making sure that, you know, there's still some like brightness and fun stuff in there too. So I think that this is just a very fun palette. Now, since I think that the best way for you to understand how this performs is to see, you know, how it actually plays on the eyes, so let's just get into the tutorial part. Okay, so as I do with every eye look, I'm gonna prime my eyes with my NYX HD eyeshadow primer. For the way I do my 3 looks review type videos, I always do one look on one eye, one look on the other, and then I wash it off and go for a 3rd look. That way, you know, we like being efficient around here. Okay, so let's begin with this eye first. So as you can see, I'm beginning with my e.l.f. and J.Kissa J3 brush, and I think I want to go for something that's a little bit intense. So I'm going to begin with the shade Mystic towards the outer portion of my eyes. Well, in the crease part thingy. And as you can see, this one definitely goes on a little bit lighter than the shade that it is in the palette. You expect it to be a little bit deeper, but it's not necessarily like a bad thing, you know? And I'm putting it on the outer corner as well. You just have to build it up a little bit more. Then I've just cleaned that brush off. I'm gonna take some of Trance here and put that in the center. And I'm not doing too much of that because I really want to make some room for that hot pink that is also in the palette. And then, spoiler alert, we are going to use Cerise, I believe that's how you pronounce that, and put that in the inner portion of my crease. And then I'm just going to take a little bit more of Trance and just use it to blend the 2 shades together a little bit more. Okay, so now that we have gotten some significant bisexual pride vibes in the crease, I'm going to do a half-cut crease using the e.l.f. glitter glue, which is what I always use. I really need to get more of this because I'm almost out. I'm just taking it on this little pencil brush here, and I'm just cutting my crease with it about halfway. At this point, I know kind of, I mean, I've been doing this long enough that I know kind of the shape of my crease and what I want it to be. So that really isn't much of an issue. I'm kind of caught between 2 shades here because I think that we have some options. So I think I'm going to begin with Princess towards the center and then use Amethyst towards the inner corner. So let's start with Princess on this very flat brush from BH Cosmetics. And I'm packing that towards the center of the lid. It's very, very peachy. This lovely little peachy pink shimmer here. And then let's get some of Amethyst on the inner corner. And this one is a little bit sheerer. This one is a little bit, it's like a little bit more of a topper, but it is still quite good. And I'm kind of trying to overlap the 2 shades as much as possible. I'm going back in with a little bit more of Princess, just to, you know, kind of blend the 2 together. And I realize you can't see what I'm doing because I covered my face with... I'm not a professional, y'all. Okay, and now I kind of want to play with the shade Ice a little bit along the lower lash line. So I'm taking the e.l.f. and J.Kissa J2 brush, and I'm kind of making that like a transition-y shade along there. And I'm going to, since this is obviously pretty light and it won't be super, super flattering along the lower lash line, I'm going to kind of deepen it up with one of the shades from my lid. And so I'm going to use Mystic up here and just kind of take that a little bit closer to the lash line so that way this doesn't look like so weird. I feel like if you have lighter eyes than brown, it would look really good, but on my eye color it just doesn't quite do it. This is a lot of different colors all at once, but that's because this palette really inspires me, you know? And then for my inner corner highlight, I'm just gonna use a shade Crystalline here. That one. That is like really thick and chunky, so I'm not used to working with shades like that just yet, just because I'm really not used to how just kind of bright and blinding it is. So it definitely looks like a lot, but I do think that it looks pretty nice. Let me blend that a little bit onto the lid and to the lower lash line, so hopefully it'll look a little more subtle-ish. So this is the finished first look. Okay, it is time to do the other eye. I kind of want to use some of the greens from this palette on that, so I'm going to begin with the shade Alien as my crease shade. This is probably definitely one of my favorite shades in the whole palette. I think it is just so lovely. I'm using this BH Cosmetics blending brush. It's like thick and chunky, you know, and you can see just how vivid and opaque that shade is, but it also just blends really nicely. And I'm going to kind of put that on my outer corner as well. And this one is going to be a little bit simpler, you know, so I'm going to go in with Mermaid here and just put that kind of all over my lid. And I'm using the flat end of an Anastasia brush. Oh, that is a really pretty shade. I hadn't actually used this one yet. I'm going to use this smaller blending brush from BH and use a little bit of Necromancer towards the outer corner of the eye. Just have a little bit of depth here, just kind of pop a little bit on there. This is pretty subtle. As the green is pretty gray toned, it does just kind of blend together pretty easily. But I still wanted to add it so I could use the shade a little bit more. Since I wanted to keep that side pretty simple, I'm just going to take more of Alien. I'm just going to use this e.l.f. blending brush and pop that along my lower lash line. Okay, and once again for my inner corner highlight, I'll use the shade Crystalline. Okay, so that is pretty easily finished look number 2. Okay, I'm back and my eyes are primed for the third look. This one I kind of want to be like a neutral with a pop sort of look, so I'm going to begin with the shade Jupiter here, that kind of reddish brown, and I'm going to use the Elf & Jacissa J3 brush again, and I would normally just kind of put it in my crease, but since I kind of want it to be a little bit more subtle, I'm kind of just slowly blending it all over my lid as well. I'm doing that instead of packing it on, just so that way it can be, you know, a little bit more of a wash of color across the lid, and that gives me a little bit more freedom to do some, just add some depth to the look, you know. And as you can see, I'm kind of trying to leave it darker towards the outer corner and lighter towards the inner corner. I'm still like putting on a very light wash on the inner corner, but not nearly as much as the rest of my eyes. And I'm also just going to go ahead and fluff that along my lower lash line too. Then I'm going to take this BH Cosmetics brush and I'm going to use the shade Mahogany to deepen up the crease, the outer corner, and the lower lash line. So I'm just beginning it at the outer portion of my eyes, blending it a little bit about halfway-ish into my crease. Kind of going a little bit further if I see that there are some gaps in there just from where my natural eye crease is. And then I'm doing the same thing along my lower lash line to just make it very subtle and easy. Okay, so if you're kind of a neutral lover, you could just use, you know, like Princess or Crystalline or something on the inner corner and you'd basically be done. But as we all know, I like to do things with a little bit of a twist, so I'm going to use Alien here, and I'm taking that on the, like, packing end of an Anastasia brush. And that is going to be my inner corner shade. And I'm taking it kind of all the way into the part where the brown didn't get quite as blended. Okay, so now I'm gonna go do my mascara and the rest of my face, and then I will be right back to finish off the video. Alright y'all, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe down below if you want to see more videos from me, and I will see y'all in my next one. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Bye!